green belt form docent, here are some things to think about as you're using this form as a practice tool at home. Once you've got the memorization done, then you want to go through it and use this form as a way to get better at certain things. So here's what I would use this form to get better at, right? First things to think about from the beginning, you got 2 moves with only 1 foot, 1 step. So that's 2 opportunities for you to use your hips and start showing that you get practice doing that. If it's weird for you at first, as we're learning the concept of how to move our hips, then really just try to, the way that helped me, I guess, when I was learning, was to over-exaggerate the move. So I'll do my cross for my hands, and then I'll just really pull this hip back and really crank out to it. And I'll really pull that hip back, really help push that punch forward. I'll just over-exaggerate from the beginning as I'm learning. All right, so 2 moves, 1 step. There's 2 hip rotations. Okay? The step from here to get to do the turn is a 2-step turn. So if you're in a good front stance and your feet are a little bit sideways, then I like to think of this as my feet are on 2 corners of a rectangle. Okay? Here's the long-legged rectangle, short, long, short. So this turn coming from here to the other side just uses all 4 corners of that rectangle. I'm going to step my front foot over, so now it's on a straight line with my back foot. That's when I'll cross and look at my other target. I'll step this one back over to that other corner far away, so now I've got some width to my front stance. Here again, 2 moves, 2 hip rotations. All right, this move should be pretty simple and easy for you. The palms up, spear hands, pretty simple. This part here, coming after this, you're imagining your opponent grabs your wrist. So, I don't remember if it's I think at white belt level we started working on wrist releases from the same side wrist grab. That's what I want to think about. That's what I want to use. I want to rotate my wrist, lead with my thumb, right, this direction. As I do that, I'm going to go ahead and step that front foot over here, make kind of a horse stance with it, all right? Just so that it's not only my wrist that's doing it, I'm going to help get my hips into it as well, all right? We talked about that when we did that at white belt level too. Then I'll cross. Left hand on top, knuckles facing me. This is the first form that has a full spin in it. You're going to spin all the way around, right? We've done things where we turn 270 degrees, but we haven't done a spin where we've gone a whole full 360. So from here, cross, get your eyes around before you finish the spin. That's one thing to think about. Land in a good front stance. A lot of people, brand new students, as they're doing this form, they'll land skinny. Alright, so one thing to use this form as a practice tool at if you're working on trying to develop your self-control, that way you tell your body where to land, then I want to do that spin and land in a nice wide front stance. Wide enough that I don't have to wiggle afterwards and I'm not feeling off balance. Alright, same thing, stepping forward, good front stance. On these back fists, knuckles point to the side. We've got all sorts of different moves here where my fist might face away from me, that's a block, outer forearm block. Where my fist face towards me, that's a block, an inner forearm block. Knuckles to the side, I'm not necessarily trying to block with this part of my arm, I'm trying to strike with those 2 knuckles right up against somebody's soft spot right here, that's called the temple. That's where I'm aiming right there. So he grabs my hand, I release out of that before he can do anything else. I spin and I knock him back. Right? Here's another one. That should finish him off. Then I turn and start just like the beginning. 2 hip rotations. 2 hip rotations. From here, as I go off at my angle, now I've got to think of some extra, what do you call them? Advanced level thinking steps. I want to think of a couple of things. Balance. This is the first form that gives you the chance to practice holding that knee up as you aim to land those 2 punches. I don't want it to be kick and fall into those punches. I'd like, by testing time, for the students to show me that they've practiced and thought about how to hold their body up straight while they're aiming, and then they can land those 2 punches when they want to. At a more advanced level, maybe brown belts and up, as you're coming back to review these forms for your testing, and you're thinking of even more advanced techniques, then I'd like to see if you can freeze that front kick out there for a millisecond, right? don't need to stay out there long, but instead of making this front kick a fast snapping kick, let it freeze for a second. And land. Same thing over here. Balance, brown belt's up, freeze, land. As I shift back over to this straight line here, going back the way I came, hips, throw those high marks. All right. Last two moves, knife hand strikes. In the yellow belt form, Dangun, we were doing these in a back stance, and we were aiming for our neck level. At the green belt level, Dosan, horse stance, aiming at the rib level, that bottom rib right there. They call that the floating rib. Right on the side of somebody's belly is where you're aiming. And again, both of those moves are great chance for you to crank your hips up and show that hip rotation instead of just keeping everything pointed straight here to the front and looking like a robot. Relax, explode, crank those hips, and let them throw those moves. Those are the biggest things I'm looking for as I'm judging at testings and at tournaments, people that are doing Dosan form. So if you're going to use that form at home as a practice tool, those are the ideas and things I'd like for you to practice and get better at.